for runs coming in years to come. All these Paul bots, as people like to call them in a derogatory term, I've used it myself, they're getting up in age. They're going to keep going up in age. And if they're an active voter base now, and if people start looking at Rand as being viable for years to come, he's going to play a long game and try to influence the debate and the topics being discussed as much as possible. Rand Paul is going to stay, but he should go.
I would agree with that, Gene. And I would say that the only oxygen that's keeping Rand Paul alive right now is the fact that he can get butts in the seat unlike any other candidate in the race. And it's something that he got from his father. I mean, you know from going to CPAC every year how they are able to get up in there and really get the tally up on the straw poll. He always comes in first in the CPAC straw poll. They can really just flood it an event. You know, they have those support bodies, and I think that's the only thing that's keeping him alive right now.
If CPAC straw polls determine the presidency of the United States, the Paul family would be president for life, 2 generations worth. Folks, we're here at halftime on the show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Behind Enemy Lines. I'm Gene. She's Amanda, filling in for Russ Gallo, who is working again tonight. And while I got you listening here live on Spreaker, check out www.BehindEnemyLinesRadio.us. Check us out on the Facebooks and on the Twitters at BEL_radio. And if you missed any part of this live show here on Spreaker, you can check us out on any one of our radio outlets for rebroadcast, which includes WNJC 1360 AM, Philadelphia's Renaissance Station, Red State Talk Radio, High Plains Talk Radio, and SHR Media, and K98 Talk, and a special shout out to Rebooting Liberty Radio Network. They're going to be folding up tent soon, and we appreciate our time on Rebooting Liberty and wish them all the best of luck as they move on to future endeavors. And by the way, if you miss any of those rebroadcasts, you can check us out here on demand on Spreaker, on iTunes, on Player FM, on Podbay, on TuneIn, I'm getting tired, on Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. Amanda, let's get back to work.
Do you have a list in front of you? That's a lot of station names.
That's a lot of options for our listeners. We like to give them as many options as they like. Whatever platform they have, we're happy to accommodate.
You have no excuse. You can always find us.
We're everywhere at any time, kind of like the federal government.
Oh.
Hi-yo. Okay, back to the should you stay or should you go questions. Speaking of doctors, we just talked about Dr. Rand Paul. Let's talk about Dr. Ben Carson.
Ben Carson.
Not a bad outcome. What?
I don't understand him. Where is the support coming from?
Well, listen, he got some great support in Iowa, comparatively. He was above the 5% mark, one of the few and the proud. He hovered at double digits for a while during the night. I don't know where the support's coming from either. All I know is, if it's a race between Ambien and Dr. Ben Carson wins.
Barely.
Well, listen.
Barely wins.
Dr. Carson makes you really listen to him when he speaks in this soft-spoken, low-tone voice that makes you kind of lean forward, as you are doing right now, listeners, as you're leaning forward to listen to me speak. That's what you do with Dr. Ben Carson. It is a great rhetorical way of speaking, and it is the anti-Trump. But it's also freaking annoying. And I'm sorry, Dr. Carson, news hitting CNN that you were skipping New Hampshire. I don't get what the point is anymore. You need to go. Amanda, are you with me or no?
Yeah, I also heard that he left the trail to go home and get a change of clothes.
Well, that's just bad campaign organizing. It should be a new set of clothes anywhere at any time, organized by his campaign team in the car, ready and waiting for him. I don't care if it's a tracksuit, you break it out.
Hey, that's a Rev Al move there. Let's not put Dr. Carson in the same camp as Reverend Al.
And since his name was invoked, yes, Reverend Al will be joining us a little later. But back to Dr. Carson. His support came from this whole outsider, angry American outrage. But because he is well-spoken, and because he is articulate, and I think because of his mannerisms, It appeals to a lot of Americans who are the anti-Trump vote, but are also the anti-establishment vote. That's where he gets the support from. I don't think you can label it as evangelical, social conservative, Tea Party, libertarian. I think it cuts across all strata.
I agree, Gene, and this is hardly anecdotal of me, but have you really met anyone who says, oh yes, I'm with Dr. Carson, 100%, he's my guy, gung-ho, gung-ho. I have been looking high and low for those grassroots-based Carson supporters. I don't know where they are, so I don't understand these numbers.
It's an interesting anomaly. The only Ben Carson people I've ever known are the people that man his table at events when we go to different events and things like that. And they're always different. They tend to skew older. They tend to skew more social conservative. They love when he talks about God and country. And that's really all I can say about him. Is, they skew older, and they seem to be a little more sophisticated in their personal taste, I guess. They're not loud and obnoxious, if you want to call it that way. It's not an identifiable demographic. Let's put it that way.
Perhaps it's that people just like the idea of Dr. Carson and what he stands for, and not so much as the campaign has this great operation that is responsible for drumming up these numbers.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a lot to do with it, too. I mean, when Brett Baier asked him that scenario, that sounded like they were playing a game of Risk during the Iowa debate. I thought for sure Ben Carson was going to say, well, first I need to find a map and figure out where Estonia is. And then I'll, something like that. That's just the kind of, you just don't picture Ben Carson as being the man with the nuclear football. I just don't see it.
Agree.
All right, but should he be out? That's the question. I say yes.
I say yes because I just don't see him bringing anything to the table aside from a great personal narrative. But it's a great personal narrative that I don't necessarily see as qualification to be commander-in-chief.
I agree. All right, I think we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. What we have, like 2 left, I think? And they're right up your alley, Amanda. Let's start with Jeb, #! Jeb Bush. I have to say it that way because the Jeb does have an exclamation point. Jeb Bush.
Well,
he did not have a good night at all.
Not at all.
I mean, he had a worse night than even anticipated, right?
I absolutely agree. And as you said earlier, Jeb spent $2,800 per vote, by far the most in the GOP field. In fact, I'm just kind of looking at a chart right now. Jeb, I think, spent more per vote than all the other candidates did per vote combined.
That is some wheeling, dealing, heavy spending. And if we're talking about fiscal conservatism, that's really not a good model. Jeb had some positives. Listen, forget about the outcome for a second. Jeb had his best performance on a debate stage in Iowa. Jeb is performing well in New Hampshire. Jeb actually got a delegate out of Iowa. He got one. He's got to stay. He has the money. He has the operation. He has the potential to run a 50-state campaign. Iowa should not faze Jeb Bush in the slightest. Now, looking forward to New Hampshire, if there's another hiccup there, you got to start wondering. Jeb's main concerns to me are the money drying up and the support waning in states where he should perform well. Florida, excuse me. That to me is, so Jeb should be a little troubled, but I think he stays in. What say you, Amanda?
He has to stay in. He is the most well-funded candidate of the 2016 cycle, including the Democrats. So on that alone, why would you drop out when you already have all of the finances in place? But
if there was ever a candidate who was all in, it's Jeb Bush.
Yes. But that being said, he needs to start getting that momentum going, and I don't necessarily see it. But he has ticked up a bit in the polls in New Hampshire. So maybe this could be a bit of a renaissance for him. But let's wait until at least the first 4 primary states are out of the way before we make a final determination on him.
All right. Comment in the chat room says that Jeb will finish 6th in New Hampshire. That's his prediction. Middle of the field.
That's bold.
Is that right or wrong?
That's a bold prediction there, Matt Fairley.
Calling him out by name on the tape. By the way, for statements like that, starting this week, Behind Enemy Lines is going to be partnering with a brand new social media concept called Go On Record. So Matt Fairley and anybody else who's in the chat room and anybody else listening, go to www.goonrecord.com. Register for the site. The way it works is it gives you a very simple interface. You write down a prediction, a position, a stand, an opinion on any number of topics, politics included. You go on there, you type it in, you preview what it says, you click publish, and it's there for good. No editing, no nothing. Take a stand. You really think Jeb's going to finish 6th? Go on record to goonrecord.com and tell the world what you think and what you believe in and what you stand for. I'm going to start doing it next week on the show and having it up here on my many windows on the computer here. And I know Russ Gallo's going to start doing it as well. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun to do.
How else are you going to settle all of those debates that always happen every week between you and Russ over, I said it a year ago?
How many times has he done that to me and said, yeah, exactly. So this is how we're going to settle it from now on. GoOnRecord.com. It's brand new. It just opened up like a week ago. Check it out. You'll be glad you did. Tell them you heard about it here Behind Enemy Lines. I think all we have left is John Kasich. I think I left him for last for a reason. I'm warming up to him a little bit. John Kasich is the best vice presidential candidate in the field today.
That's also
the man should stay around just to remind people that he's from Ohio. He should stay around so we can make another Fruit Ninja video of his hand motions. The man is entertaining. By the way, did you know that he's from Ohio?
I did not know that. Did you know his dad was a mailman?
This is the first I'm hearing that.
Wow.
Whoa, mind blown. Really? Wow. That's amazing. Listen, he's not short on personal narrative, but listen, I think he adds something to the field. First of all, swing state. I like the fact that that Ohio is engaged in Republican politics in the presidential primary, not only because they think they're a swing state, and they probably are, but because their governor is involved actively in the race. The longer he stays in, the better the chances are for the GOP in Ohio. Secondly, again, I think he can bring some balance to an outsider slash Tea Party slash ultra conservative top of the ticket. And by hanging around, I think people will warm to him and will take a shine to him, like I have.
No, I agree. And let me just throw out a couple of little fact points here. He's currently polling second in New Hampshire, so that means that he will come with a little bit of a base behind him. And he is a governor in a swing state who has balanced a budget. Great executive experience, but I don't necessarily think he has the momentum to go all the way, but I think you're absolutely right that he will make a great VP, a ticket runner with someone else.
And all the debate practice he's getting right now for a VP debate, that'll be fantastic. And he's certainly getting a lot of it, at least once a month. His stand on Medicare and how it was handled in the state, a little weak, but I think I can live with him in the VP slot.
Yeah. And it might be the more establishment-minded among us.
It's a unity ticket. It's a fusion of the ticket, I think, by having a John Kasich there. I think we hit them all. Did I miss anybody? I'm going through my list here in my head. Carson. Yeah, I think we got them all.
Yeah.
But there are 2 candidates we haven't talked about yet.
Or do you mean 3?
No, I think there's only 2 left
only
now, right?
Only 2? Yeah. I mean,
there's only 2?
Maybe that third one isn't even worth thinking about.
Well, listen, Martin O'Malley, I don't even pay attention to them. Fairley says we missed Jim Gilmore. Yeah, bye. See you later. Taking care of Jim Gilmore.
Bye, Felicia.
What did he get, like 12 votes? 15 votes? I don't even know.
I think you could count them on 2 hands.
And they were all cousins. Anyway, let's talk about. I think there's still